cutting edge. As you say, we want to explore a cassette here. But you who are not familiar with Charles Darwin, is the one that came up with the theory that all living species have one origin, and man descended from the ape. But I want to tell you something. I read the Bible, and when I read the Bible is not far from what Charles Darwin said. It's done that the Bible separates the human species from the other species, but the Bible tells us that the whole earth was water. And part of the theory that these people have is that man descended from, all living creatures descended from water. And they evolved into different creatures, and some evolved into what we now call human beings. You know, you have the Homo sapiens, the Neanderthal. But it's a serious thing, but what we want to explore upon this cassette here is the idea that Europeans have about them being a superior race over what them call people of color. And in order to maintain the superiority, they spread this propaganda of they being more evolved, brain-wise, than other human beings of color, especially black people. And most of the political scientists of those times and most of the political leaders of those times in Europe actually hold fast to this idea that white people is superior. And it was strengthened by Charles Darwin's theory. You know, when I a youth and I used to go to school and we are studying and look, search for things. We never used to get everything we want in the school, Kingston Technical. So we used to go outside and go look for little books. And we used to find this little book named The Origin of Species by Charles Darwin. And we read it. It's a little book, and we read it fully, totally. And it allows us to analyzing ourselves, you know, what is this theory all about. And for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, I would suggest that you find some book, especially this book we talk about, The Original Species by Charles Darwin. And don't be afraid to read it, because you have some people, especially if them is Christian-minded, them don't want to read nothing outside of them belief system to upset the apple cart, you understand? But you know, you have to open your mind. Anyway, what we are saying is that Charles Darwin declared this thing, and the white people them in Europe develop it into a racist doctrine against other nations, other races. And part of Hitler's mindset was based upon this thing that they were the superior race, and other people, them did have to wipe out the other races to get a superior race. As a matter of fact, them declare even Stalin, you know, if you're into those political mindset. Stalin killed millions of people with this mindset. Marx come with this mindset. And sometimes you and a man may believe the same thing, but the mindset behind the belief is different. It's true. Because a lot of things where I read in relationship to evolution, a whole heap of it makes sense to me. But where we find that Europeans is devoid of spirituality when it comes on to the evolutionary mindset. The spirituality that all African people together. You know, when I look in my evolutionary mind now, I am seeing evolution, but I am seeing that there is a spirituality that is necessary. Not a supernatural spirituality, but a spirituality that binds you to nature, to life. You understand? But without further ado, we want to play this tape. As I say, it's a brethren we play already. He have a series of cassettes. And we always play them, you know, from England, some Muslim brethren. So we want you to listen to for the next hour. I hope I said put your tape on cock because very interesting.
The 20th century, in hindsight, was a century of war and conflict. A century of people supporting conflicting ideas, who drowned mankind in pain and blood in the name of tyrannical ideologies. Millions of people were killed, massacred, abandoned to hunger and death, and left without shelter, protection, or support in the name of serving deviant ideologies. Millions more were left exposed to inhuman treatment. Almost every time there were the signatures of dictators beneath all the suffering and disasters. Stalin, Lenin, Trotsky, Mao, Pol Pot, Hitler, Mussolini, Franco. While some of these names shared the same ideology, others were bitter enemies to the death. And from this rivalry, many societies were dragged into their conflicts, turning brother against brother. Fascism and communism come at the top of these ideologies, which brought some of mankind's darkest days. These ideologies are seen as enemies of each other, but in fact, there lies an undiscovered truth here. These ideologies were nourished by one ideological source, drew strength and support from it. That source is Darwin's materialist philosophy. Darwinism emerged in the 19th century as the restating of a myth dating back to Sumeria and ancient Greece, and has since then formed the fundamental idea behind most of the ideologies that have been harmful to mankind. Darwinism has worn a so-called scientific mask. It thus allowed these ideologies and their supporters practical measures to win a false legitimacy. By means of this false legitimacy, the theory of evolution fully up the fields of knowledge of biology and paleontology, and began to comment on fields from human relations to history, and to influence all from politics to social life. Because some particular claims of Darwinism supported the contemporary thought, which began to come into motion and take shape in the 19th century, it started to gain wide support from these circles. In particular, people began trying to apply the idea that there is a fight for survival among living creatures in nature, and as a result, the idea that the strong survive while the weak are defeated began to be applied to human thought and behavior. When Darwinism's claim that nature was a place of struggle and conflict began to be applied to human beings and society, it gave birth to Hitler's deviation of building a master race. Marx's claim that the history of mankind is the history of class struggle, capitalism's provision for the strong growing even stronger at the expense of the weak. The inhuman colonization of the so-called third world countries by such imperialist nations as Britain all found some kind of justification. Robert Wright, the writer of the book The Moral Animal, summarizes the disasters that the theory of evolution has brought to the history of mankind in this way. Before Darwin, almost 5,000 years ago, idol-worshipping religions had dominated in Mesopotamia. These idolatrous religions had produced some superstitions and myths regarding the roots of life in the universe. One of these was the belief in evolution. According to the Sumerian Enuma Elish, life had emerged spontaneously, without divine aid. First in water, and then living species had physically evolved from one another. Later, the myth of evolution found more space to live in another idol-worshipping civilization, ancient Greece. Ancient Greek materialist philosophers counted matter as the only thing that existed. They turned to the myth of evolution, inherited from the Sumerians, to explain how living things came about. In this way, materialist philosophy and the myth of evolution came together in ancient Greece. From there, it was carried to the culture of Rome. These two concepts of idolatrous cultures were introduced to the modern world in the 20th century. Some European intellectuals who examined the ancient Greek sources adopted materialism. They all had one common feature. They were totally against the idea of religion, completely against the divine intention. In this environment, the first person to take the theory of evolution on in a detailed way was the French biologist, Jean-Baptiste Lamarck. In his theory, which would later be understood to be false, Lamarck proposed that all living creatures evolved from one another by small changes throughout the line. One person who repeated Lamarck's claims in a slightly different way was Charles Darwin. Darwin put forward his theory in his book, The Origin of Species, which he published in England in 1859. In his book, the myth of evolution, which had come down from ancient Sumeria, was put forward in some detail. He claimed that all species of living creatures came from one ancestor, formed by casting of water, and that they had grown different from one another by small changes which came about by coincidence. Darwin's claim was based on the apparent graduations of complexity between different animal groups. However, Darwin's theory did not win much general acceptance from the men of science of his time. Fossil experts in particular were aware that Darwin's claim was nothing but the product of a fantasy. The fossil record revealed that living organisms did not evolve from primitive to advanced species, as Darwin claimed. In the following years, other claims of the theory of evolution were refuted one after another. Biochemistry revealed that life is far too complex to have emerged by chance. The mathematical impossibility of the haphazard formation of the simplest protein molecule, let alone a cell, became evident. In the coming years, anatomy revealed that living things have a superior design and that they were created separately. Darwin's theory seriously lacked a scientific foundation. Yet, the theories do need political support because with this theory, Darwin offered an extraordinary ideological foundation for the dominant powers of the 19th century. In 1871, Darwin published The Descent of Man, in which he outlined his theory on the origin of man, claiming that man and ape evolved from a common ancestor. Darwin showed no evidence whatsoever to support this claim, but merely produced some imaginary assumptions. Darwin also embraced an interesting thought. He asserted that some races were more evolved and therefore more advanced than others. Some races thus were almost still at the same level as apes. Darwin's theory had also a second important aspect. Darwin erected his theory on the foundation of the concept of struggle for life. According to him, a fierce struggle, a continuous dispute pervaded in nature, the strong always won against the weak, and thus ensure development. Darwin asserted that the same type of struggle also held true among human races. Even the subtitle in his book, The Origin of Species, by way of natural selection or the preservation of favoured races in the struggle for life, explicitly reveals his racial views. According to Darwin, favoured races were the Europeans. Asian and African races had simply remained behind in this struggle for life. Darwin went further and suggested that these races would completely lose out in this struggle.
Not so distant as measured by centuries, the civilized stages of man will almost certainly exterminate and replace the savage races throughout the world. At the same time, the anthropomorphic apes will no doubt be exterminated, creating great distance between man and a more civilized state.
Darwin was an explicit racist, believing in the superiority of the Europeans over other races in the world. He believed that the Europeans first enslaved and then eradicate these so-called inferior races over time. Indeed, Darwin's theory flourished, because just at that time, the Europeans were in search of a theory to legitimize their offensive. A 400-year horrid mass enslavement of millions of Africans and their descendants, a subhuman persecution of unimaginable cruelty. colonized different parts of the world. Later, the Spanish people invaded South America, enslaving the natives who inherently had a peaceful nature. The provinces of South America, which were rich in gold and silver, were plundered by these invaders, who forced natives to work for this end. Those natives who resisted were violently massacred. After the Spanish, the Portuguese, the Dutch, and then the British also took part in the competition of colonization. In the 19th century, Britain became the world's greatest empire of colonialism. From India to Latin America, the British Empire exploited the natural resources of an extensive geography. Of course, these countries didn't want to be remembered throughout history as plunderers, which is why they have sought for an explanation to justify their exploitation by labeling these exploited people as primitive men and even animal-like beings. Such assertions were first put forward during the early period of colonization, exactly at the same time when Christopher Columbus set sail for America. By claiming that the American natives were not real human beings, but a developed animal species, the Spanish colonizers sought to completely legitimize the enslavement of natives to suit their purpose. Nevertheless, the claims of colonists did not attract many advocates, since during this period, people in Europe widely believed that human beings were equally created by God, and that they all came from a common ancestor, the prophet Adam. However, beliefs changed in the 19th century as the materialist philosophy gained popularity, and people started to ignore the fact that God created human beings. The so-called scientific basis of racism was Darwin's theory of evolution. Indian anthropologist Muta takes this up.
Darwin's theory of the survival of the fittest was warmly welcomed by social scientists of the day, and they believed mindset had achieved various levels of evolution, culminating in the white man's civilization. The second half of the 19th century, that idea was accepted as fact by the vast majority of Western scientists.
In 1912, a strange skull was found in Pilsen, England. Charles Dawson, a scientist who found the skull together with his team, declared that this skull belonged to a creature which was half ape, half human. Arthur Keith, the renowned evolutionist and anatomist, examined the fossil and confirmed the results. However, Dawson and Keith emphasized an important point. The brain of the fossil was as big as that of a modern man. The jawbone, however, had ape-like features. Suddenly, the brain of Piltdown Man became matter of pride for the British. Since this skull was found in England, it had to be the ancestor of the British people. According to the British scientists, the greater volume of the brain indicated that the British evolved before other races, and that they were superior to other races. Newspapers ran headlines, and crowds joyously celebrated the discovery. The British government sponsored a knighthood to Arthur Keith for his famous discovery. The famous evolutionist, paleontologist John Bohanson, describes the relationship between the Piltdown fossil and English imperialism.
The Piltdown discovery was very Eurocentric. Not only did the brain have brains, but the English had brains.
With upon this cassette here about Charles Darwin's theory and how the Europeans developed this theory into a racist mindset over other people. So we want to just continue the consciousness.
Between the Piltdown fossil and English imperialism.
The Piltdown discovery was very Eurocentric. Not only did the brain have preeminence, but the English had preeminence.
The inspiration the English derived from Piltdown Man lasted only until 1953, when Kenneth Oakley, a scientist who re-examined the fossil in detail, disclosed it as the greatest forgery of the 20th century. The fossil was produced by fixing an orangutan jaw to a human skull. London Radio announced this fact with great astonishment.
Britain's Natural History Museum has been shaken over a scandal concerning the Piltdown Man. One of the most famous fossil skulls in the world is declared to be in part of a hoax. 40 years ago, its discovery was a sensation. Today comes the shocking news that this is skullduggery.
The Piltdown Man hoax was only the beginning for evolutionists. In the coming years, other new skulls were introduced as the ancestors of man. Yet in time, each one of these proved to be mere window dressing. It was realized that these skulls, which were displayed as pieces of evidence by evolutionists, belonged either to extinct ape species or ancient human races. The story of Piltdown Man was only a symbolic indication of British racism deriving support from the theory of evolution. British imperialism actually found in Darwinism much more solid grounds to rely on. Colonization was not the only threat endorsed by Darwinism. The 20th century was also to witness the terrible alliance of Darwinism with Hitler. Nazism was born in a chaotic Germany, which emerged defeated from the First World War. The leader of the party was the angry and aggressive Adolf Hitler. Racism formed the basis of Hitler's worldview. Hitler believed that the so-called Aryan race, the fundamental element of the German nation, was superior to all the other races and had to rule them. He dreamed that the Aryan race would found a world empire, last 1,000 years. The scientific support Hitler found for these racist theories was Darwin's theory of evolution.
Muta on the continent.
Hitler's most important idea molder was the racist German historian Heinrich von Treitschke, who was strongly affected by Darwin's theory of evolution. He used to say that nations can only develop by violent competition. While Hitler was developing his theories, he drew inspiration. The title of his famous book, Mein Kampf, My Fight, was a mere expression of the influence Darwin's struggle for life had made on Hitler. And just like Darwin, Hitler gave non-European races the status of monkeys, and said that if the North European Germans were taken out of human history, nothing remains but a monkey dance. The evolutionist views of Nazis were grounded in eugenics. The theory of eugenics, which emerged in the first half of the 20th century, attracted many supporters. Eugenics in this period meant the weeding out of the sick and the handicapped and improving the human race by increasing the number of healthy individuals. As might be expected, those who put forward the eugenics program were Darwinists. At the head of the eugenics wave in England came Charles Darwin's son, Leonard Darwin, and his cousin, Francis Galton. It was clear that the idea of eugenics was a natural result of Darwinism.
Eugenics is man's taking charge of his own evolution.
In Germany, the first person to be influenced by and to spread eugenics was the famous evolutionary biologist Ernst Haeckel. Haeckel was a close friend and supporter of Darwin. To support the theory of evolution, he put forward the claim recapitulation, which proposed that the embryos of different living creatures resembled one another. It later emerged that Haeckel had falsified the data when putting forward this claim. He omitted some parts of embryos and made distortions on original drawings. Even Haeckel himself later confessed that his drawings were products of forgery. Yet, evolutionist circles turned a blind eye to all these forgeries to keep the theory alive. While Haeckel was on the one hand making scientific forgeries of this kind, on the other, he was putting forward eugenics propaganda. He suggested that newly born handicapped children should be killed forthwith. He went even further, claiming that lepers and people with cancer and mental illnesses should be painlessly killed, or else these people would be a burden on society and would slow down evolution. Haeckel died in 1919, but his ideas were inherited by the Nazis. Shortly after Hitler came to power, an official eugenics program was initiated. Hitler summed up the new policy in these sentences.
In a popular state, the education of the mind and the body will play an important role, but human selection is just as important. The state has the responsibility of declaring as unfit for reproductive purposes anyone who is obviously ill or genetically unsound, and must carry through with this responsibility ruthlessly without respect to understanding or lack of understanding on the part of anyone. Stopping reproduction of the bodily degenerate or physically ill for a period of only 600 years would lead to improvement in human health, which can hardly be envisaged today. If the fertility of the healthiest members of the race realized, a planned result would be a race which would have lost the seeds of bodily and spiritual decay, which we now carry.
As a necessity of Hitler's policy, the mentally ill, the disabled, the blind from birth, and those with genetic diseases in German society were rounded up in special sterilization centers. These people were regarded as parasites, harmful to the purity and evolutionary progress of the German race. A while later, in fact, these people who were removed from society began to be killed by secret order. Under a law passed in 1933, 350,000 mentally ill people, 30,000 gypsies, and hundreds of black children were sterilized by such methods as castration, X-rays, and electric shocks to the genital area. One Nazi officer said,
"National Socialism is nothing but applied biology."
by these pitiless methods against innocent people, Hitler, while continuing to fulfill the other requirements of eugenics in an effort to speed up the so-called evolution of the German race, blonde, blue-eyed men and women accepted as representative of the German race were encouraged to form relationships. In 1935, special reproduction farms were established for this purpose. SS units frequently visited these farms, where young girls conforming to racist criteria were housed. The illegitimate children born on these farms were to be raised as the soldiers of the intended 1,000-year German kingdom. The Nazis again used Darwinist concepts to allegedly prove the superiority of the Aryan race. Darwin had proposed that as people evolved, so their skulls grew larger. The Nazis embraced this idea fiercely and set about taking skull measurements to show that the German race was superior. In all corners of Nazi Germany, comparisons were made showing that German skulls were larger than those of other races. Teeth, eyes, hair, and other features were evaluated with evolutionary measurements. Individuals found not to match up to German race measurements were to be exterminated in the name of the principles of eugenics. All this madness was carried out in the name of implementing Darwinist principles on society. The American historian Michael Garrodin, author of the book The Nazi Doctors, said in his supposition,
"What happened was that there was a perfect match of Nazi ideology and social Darwinism and racial hygiene as it developed in the turn of the 20th century.
The American researcher George Stein wrote in one of his articles published in American Scientist magazine,
National Socialism, whatever else it may have been, for example, a revolt of the petty bourgeoisie, was ultimately the first fully self-conscious attempt to organize a political community on a basis of explicit biopolicy."
The famous evolutionist Sir Arthur Keith comments on Hitler as follows.
The German Führer, as I have consistently maintained, is an evolutionist. He has consciously sought to make the practice of Germany conform to the theory of evolution.
Hitler had a great hatred of divine religions. Moral virtues such as compassion, mercy, and humility, ordered by divine religions, represented a great obstacle to the ruthless and warrior Aryan type the Nazis wanted to create. For this reason, once the Nazis came to power in 1933, they tried to turn German society back to its old pagan beliefs. The swastika, a symbol from an old pagan culture, was a sign of this return. The Nazi ceremonies held in every corner of Germany were a return to the ancient pagan rites. The idea of evolution fitted in exceedingly well with the ideology Nazism. In the same way that Hitler determined his policy by employing Darwinism, so his contemporary and ally Benito Mussolini made use of Darwinist claims and concepts to set Italy on imperialist and fascist foundations. In 1935, he occupied Ethiopia. He did not delay in backing and justifying his occupation of Ethiopia with Darwinism's racist views. According to Mussolini, the Ethiopians were inferior because they were of the black race, and being governed by a superior race like the Italians should have been an honor for them. Mussolini also thought that nations evolved by wars. For him, the reluctance of England to engage in war only proved the evolutionary decadence of the British Empire. The Nazi Empire lost the Second World War and went down in history as the murderer of millions of innocent people. Mussolini, on the other hand, was executed by his own people. Materialist philosophy, which was born in ancient Greece, enjoyed a victory in the 19th century, owing its success to the two German philosophers, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. They tried to explain the materialist philosophy in terms of a new method called dialectics. Dialectics was a belief that all development in the universe arose as the result of conflict. Based on this belief, Marx and Engels set about analyzing the history of the world. Marx claimed that the history of man was one of conflict, that the current conflict was one between workers and capitalists, and that the workers would soon rise up and build a communist revolution. The most striking feature of the two founders of communism was that, like all materialists, they nurtured a great hatred of religion. Marx and Engels were both confirmed atheists, and saw the doing away with religious beliefs as essential from the point of view of communism. At the time Marx and Engels formulated these thoughts, Darwin was proposing the evolution theory in his book, The Origin of Species, and putting forth the claim that living beings evolved through a continuous struggle for existence, namely through dialectics. Furthermore, it denied all religions and creation. This was an inestimable opportunity for Marx and Engels. Engels immediately read Darwin's book and wrote to Marx.
Darwin, who I am just now reading, is splendid.
In response to him, Marx wrote,
"This is the book which contains the basis in natural history for our view."
Engels was so influenced by Darwin's theory that he wrote an article titled "The Role of Labor in the Passage from Monkey to Man." Later on, Engels compiled all his evolutionary ideas in the book Dialectics of Nature. At that time, Russia was reigned by the royal Tsarist regime led by the family of Romanov. Lenin's Bolsheviks movement were trying to bring down the Tsarist regime by force of arms. The chaos of World War I gave the Bolsheviks the opportunity they had been seeking. With Lenin at their head, the communists seized power by the use of arms in October 1917. After the revolution, Russia was the scene of a bloody 3-year civil war between communists and the supporters of the Tsar. Communists killed everyone they believed to be their opponents, including the family of the Tsar. Like his mentors, Marx and Engels, Lenin was also a fervent evolutionist, and often stressed that Darwin's theory was the fundamental basis of the dialectic materialist philosophy he advocated. Leon Trotsky counted as the most important architect of the Bolshevik Revolution after Lenin. Trotsky, as did Lenin, attached great importance to Darwinism. He declared his admiration for Darwin in the following way.
The discovery by Darwin was the highest triumph of the dialectic in the whole field of organic matter.
Following Lenin's death in 1924, Joseph Stalin, widely regarded as the bloodiest dictator in the history of the world, passed to the leadership of the Communist Party. Throughout his 30 years in power, Stalin would try to prove just what a ruthless system communism was. Stalin's first important move was to take over the fields of the peasants who made up 80% of the population of Russia. In the name of this policy of collectivization, which was intended to do away with private property, armed officials collected all the Russian villagers' crops, and as a result, there was a terrible famine. Millions of women, children, and elderly people could find nothing to eat, ended their lives writhing in hunger. 20% of the population of Kazakhstan died of hunger. The death toll in Caucasia alone was 1 million. Stalin sent hundreds of thousands of people who tried to resist this policy to Siberia's dreadful labor camps. These camps, where prisoners were worked to death, became the grave of many. On the other hand, tens of thousands of people were executed by Stalin's secret police. Millions of people were forced to migrate to the furthest corners of Russia, including the Crimean and Turkestan Turks. By these bloody policies, Stalin killed some 20 million people. Historians have revealed that it gave him great pleasure to sit at his desk in the Kremlin and examine the lists of those who had died in the concentration camps or who had been executed. Apart from his personal psychological state, the main influence which led him to become such a ruthless killer was the materialist philosophy he believed in. In Stalin's own words, the fundamental basis of this philosophy was Darwin's theory of evolution. He explained the importance he attached to Darwin's ideas.
We must teach one thing to remove the idea of creation from the young minds.
One important indication of Stalin's blind faith in the theory of evolution was the Soviet education system's rejection of Mendel's genetic laws in the period when he came to power. These laws, which had been accepted by the whole world of science since the start of the 20th century, denied Lamarck's claim that acquired characteristics can be passed on to later generations. The Russian scientist, Lysenko, saw this as a heavy blow to the theory of evolution, and at the same time a great danger. Stalin was impressed by Lysenko's ideas and made him head of the official scientific associations. Thus, genetic science, which discredited Darwinian evolution, was not accepted in any Soviet Union scientific association or school until Stalin's death. Anarchy and terror are two of Marxism and communism's indispensable tools. Marxism's tendency towards terrorism and violence appeared in the experiment of the Paris Commune while Marx was still alive. In particular, terrorism became an indispensable part of communist ideology with Lenin, while he was making Marx's theory a practicality. Communists spilt the blood of millions of people in every part of the world and made people undergo pain, fear, and violence by establishing terrorist organizations. No matter how much some communists claim that violence and terrorism are not communist practices, and that they only took place in some remote applications of communism, and no matter how much they try to whitewash communism, there is an undeniable truth. The founders of communism personally defended violence and terrorism and saw them as essential to their ideology. The American political scientist Samuel Francis also stated that Marx and Engels always defended that revolution came about by force. They insist that revolutionists have to use force against the dominant power.
Revolution is as much war as war.
Speaking at a workers' meeting, Lenin gave a terrifying statement of how indispensable terrorism was to them.
We must be amazed at how they have been able to forget even the simplest Marxist principles. If groups will not rise up of their own accord, we can achieve nothing. So long as we do not wage terror against the speculators, So long as we do not put a bullet in their heads, we will get nowhere.
One of the most important leaders of the October Revolution in Russia, Trotsky, says this to confirm Lenin's words.
But revolution demands the revolutionary class use all the methods at its disposal to achieve its ends. If necessary, with an armed uprising. If necessary, with terrorism.
These principles of such communist theoreticians as Lenin and Trotsky were put into practice in the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. During the revolutionary period of autumn 1917, they began wide-ranging massacres, looting, and unbelievable violence. Those people who were against the revolution, or who were suspected of being against the revolution, were rounded up, arrested, and shot.
R.E.F.M. Thought-provoking, always smoking, lyrics
or who
like
were
the
suspected of being against the revolution,
to
were
Muta.
rounded up, arrested, and shot. Houses were looted and wrecked. Terrorism, which began with Lenin and Trotsky, continued and grew worse in the Stalin years. Harrison E. Salisbury from the New York Times made this comment on the Soviet system's prison camps.
A whole continent of terror, compared with those who brought about the hundreds of thousands of executions and the millions of deaths in the Soviet terror system, the czars seem almost benign. Our minds boggle at the thought of a systemized, routine evil under which 3 or 4 million men and women were sentenced each year to forced labor and external exile, and in a manner so casual that the prisoners often were not even told what their sentences were.
Non-Russian peoples, and particularly the Crimean Turks, the Central Asian Turks, and the Kazakhs, were exposed to the terrorism of the Soviet system. Special courts, troikas, were established to cleanse Russian society of the Kazakhs. In October 1920 alone, these troikas sentenced more than 6,000 people to death. The families, and sometimes even the neighbors of those who opposed the regime and were not apprehended, were systematically taken hostage and sent to concentration camps. Martin Latsis, the head of one of these camps in the Ukraine, admitted that these were death camps in one of his reports.
The hostages gathered at a camp near Makeup, women, children, and the elderly, are living covered in mud and in dreadful conditions in the October cold. They are dying like flies. The women are prepared to do anything not to die. The soldiers charged with protecting the camp are taking advantage of this situation to trade in these women.
Under the influence of Darwin, the communist revolutionaries were killing people in a crazed manner. It appears from documents of the time that the sole aim was total extermination. It was as if they believed that the more people they killed, the greater success they would have. They planned to wipe out everybody suspected of being against the revolution, and revealed in one of their decisions,
The Pyatorsky Checkers, Extraordinary Committee for War Against the Counter-Revolution, launched a frenzy of arrests and execution. The Pyatorsky Checkers decided to execute 300 people in one day. Quotas were drawn up from Pyatorsky city and the small town around it. Party organizations were ordered to prepare the execution lists. For want of a better idea, they decided that people in the hospital should be killed.
As was announced in the lead article of the newspaper, Krasny Mek, the communists saw everything as permissible and believed that blood had to be spilt for the color of the red flag to come about.
Everything is permitted for us because we draw our swords not to oppress and enslave mankind, but to free it from its chains. Blood? Let it flow in streams, because only blood can permanently paint the black pirate flag of the bourgeoisie the color of the red flag, the standard of the revolution. Because only the death of the old world can permanently save us from the return of the jackals.
As well as all this torture, Stalin set up compulsory collection units to take the peasants' produce by force. These units were responsible for all kinds of oppression. On February the 14th, 1922, an inspector wrote the following.
The unjust practices of the compulsory collection units have reached unbelievable proportions. Arrested villagers are systematically locked into cold hangars, beaten with whips and threatened with death. They tie the hands and arms of those who are unable to meet their quotas and make them run naked the length of the main village street. Then they are pushed into a cold hangar. A large number of women are beaten until they faint, and then they are put naked into holes in the snow.
Stalin believed that Spain represented opportunities for the USSR. For that reason, he took sides and supported the communists in the Spanish Civil War. But with that, the terrorism in the USSR overflowed into Spain. One example of the oppression and torture there was the concentration camp that 200 anti-Stalinists were held in at the beginning of 1938. One of the detainees who survived described the camp in this way.
When the Stalinists wanted to form a checker there, we were cleaning a small graveyard. The Czechs had a devilish idea. The graveyard was left as it was, with open graves, with its skeletons and its new corpses which were beginning to rot. And they buried the most intractable inmates there all night long. And even worse, tortures were practiced. Many prisoners were hung upside down by their feet for days on end. And it made it difficult for others to breathe. They were locked in narrow cupboards with few air holes open at face level. There was even a rough method of torture called the drawer. Prisoners were forced into closed chests and made to stay in their position for days. Some of them remained for 8 to 10 days without moving.
In 1931, Pope Pius XI had this to say about the violence communism had inflicted on the world in his bull Quadragesimo Anno.
Communism teaches and seeks two objectives: unrelenting class warfare and absolute extermination of private ownership. Not secretly or by hidden methods does it do this, but publicly, openly, and by employing every and all means, even the most violent. To achieve these objectives, there is nothing which it does not dare, nothing for which it has the respect or reverence. And when it has come to power, it is incredible and portent-like in cruelty and inhumanity. The horrible slaughter and destruction through which it has laid waste vast regions of Eastern Europe and Asia are the evidence.
Communism's principal aims were a merciless class war and the complete doing away with private property. In other words, the aim was to apply the theory of evolution, which Darwin had applied in the biological field to human societies, and for human beings to be like wild animals in nature, in conflict and at war. Brought about by communism did not stop in Russia. One of the country's worst hit was China. In China, after a long civil war, the communists seized power under the leadership of Mao Tse-tung in 1949. Mao established a bloody and repressing regime just like his ally Stalin, who provided great support to him. During the following years, young militants of Mao called Mao's Red Army threw the country into a state of complete terror. Mao explained the philosophical basis of his order by explicitly stating that
the basis of Chinese socialism relies on Darwin and the theory of evolution.
Mao fought a long guerrilla war until 1949. He used the rural terrain to organize an insurrection against the central government, which was ruling in the big cities. To do this, he had to establish good relations with the peasants. He promised them that they would achieve happiness and welfare when communist China was established. Believing in his promises, peasants supported him and his guerrillas. However, things changed drastically after Mao came to power. In the first years of the revolution, Mao committed himself to establishing his rule across entire China and making the communist authority predominant in all provinces. In the middle of the 1950s, Mao entertained visions similar to Stalin's collectivization policy. In 1958, this plan was put into effect. Mao called the project the Great Leap Forward. The project, however, only brought warmth and torture to his people. Under the banner of increasing production by abolishing private ownership, the peasants were forced to collectivize their fields. Requisitioning detachments of Stalin's Russia were repeated. peasants of some regions of China were punished by starvation for their reluctance towards Mao's collectivization policies. The Great Leap Forward shortly turned into a Great Famine. This was an artificial famine similar to Stalin's artificial famine in the Ukraine. In the Black Book of Communism, China during the Great Leap Forward was described as
the fact that famine was primarily a political phenomenon is demonstrated by the high death rates in provinces where the leaders were Maoist radicals. Provinces that in previous years had actually been net exporters of grain.
Party activists in Henan were convinced that all the difficulties arose from the peasants' concealment of private stocks of grain. According to the secretary of the Yingjia district, which had 10 million inhabitants, and where the first people's commune in the country had been established,
the problem is not that food is lacking. There are sufficient quantities of grain, but 90% of the inhabitants are suffering from ideological difficulties.
In the autumn of 1959, the class war was momentarily forgotten, and a military-style offensive was launched against the peasants, using methods very similar to those used by anti-Japanese guerrilla groups. At least 10,000 peasants were imprisoned, and many died of hunger behind bars. The order was given to smash all privately owned cutlery that had not yet been turned to steel. Even fires were banned, despite the approach of winter. The excesses of repression were terrifying. Thousands of detainees were systematically tortured, and children were killed and even boiled and used as fertilizer. At the very moment when a nationwide campaign was telling people to learn the Henan way, in Anhui, where the stated intention was to keep the red flag flying even if 90% of the population died, cadres returned to the traditional practices of live burials and torture with red-hot irons. The note of a Western observer who was passing by a Chinese village during the Great Leap Forward described the cruel and savage side of Maoism.
We walked along beside the village. The rays of the sun shone on the jade-green weeds that had sprung up between the earth walls, accentuating the contrast with the rice fields all around, and adding to the desolation of the landscape. Before my eyes, among the weeds, rose up one of the scenes I'd been told about, one of the banquets of which the families had swapped children in order to eat them. I could see the worried faces of the families as they chewed the flesh of each other's children. The children who were chasing butterflies in a nearby field seemed to be the reincarnation of the children devoured by their parents. I felt sorry for the children, but not as sorry as I felt for their parents. What had made them swallow that human flesh, amidst the tears and grief of other parents? Flesh that they would never have imagined tasting, even in their worst nightmares. In that moment, I understood what a butcher he had been. The man who's like humanity has not seen in several centuries, and China not in several thousand years. Mao Zedong, 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 Zedong.
The famine that struck China between 1958 and 1961, because of the Great Leap Forward policy of Mao, is accepted to be the greatest and most deadly famine in history. The death toll from the famine was around 40 million. What kind of a mentality then underlies these policies, forcing people to commit incomprehensible savagery? Mao's Great Leap Forward trial was a kind of natural selection test. Mao forced the Chinese people to the heaviest conditions possible, thus electing the weak and the opponents of communism. On the other hand, he was trying to brainwash the peasants with famine and make them subjects to himself and the communist regime. The ideological basis of this movement lied in Darwinism. Unsurprisingly, during the Great Leap Forward, Mao also started an education program in which dialectic material and Darwinism had the leading role. The communist ideology that stained the world with blood for 150 years has always been interconnected with Darwinism. Today, communists are still the foremost advocates of Darwinism. In almost all countries, the advocates of the theory of evolution have primarily been Marxists. That is simply because, as Karl Marx said,
the theory of the evolution contains the basis in natural history for communist ideology.
Stalin's demolition of dozens of churches and mosques is just one indication of communism's hatred of religion. In his book, Soviet Marxism and Natural Science, David Jurafsky describes the link in this way.
The enmity communism and materialism had for religion showed itself in all of its violence during the Bolshevik uprising and after. Churches and mosques were knocked down. Despite the fact that most of society was religious, people were obstructed from carrying out their religious duties. In order to take Sundays when Christians went to church out of the equation, the concept of a common day of rest was removed. Everyone would work 5 days, and the day of rest could be at any day. The communists thought that this precaution would facilitate the war to eradicate religion completely.
Following that, in 1928 and 1930, the taxes paid by men of religion were raised 10 times. Their food coupons were taken from them, and they could no longer use the health services. They were often arrested, moved from their posts, and sent into exile. By 1936, some 65% of mosques and 70% of churches had been destroyed. Some of the most violent measures against religion were taken in Albania. The communist leader of Albania, known for having no religion, was Enver Hoxha, who in 1967 proclaimed Albania the first religionless country. Men of religion would be taken into custody for no reason, and some of them were killed while in custody. In 1948, 2 bishops and 5,000 men of religion were shot. The country's Nendori newspaper announced that 2,169 mosques and churches had been closed down. All these practices were, beyond a shadow of a doubt, a communist's aim of forming societies which would blindly deny the existence of God and have nothing to do with religion. A society which would only believe in and value material things. This was communism's primary aim. The communist leaders knew that they could only govern as they wished if the people became like machines, insensitive, unfeeling, and most important of all, godless. In this way, they could make them carry out as many killings and as much oppression as they wanted. The claims of Darwinism, which gave support to atheism, which justified all kinds of oppression, cruelty, conflict, and killing, encouraged in this way all the ideologies of the 20th century, which spilled blood and counted human life as valueless. Darwinism was advanced a century ago. Since then, its legacy to humanity is only brutal dictators, racism, and wars. This is merely the natural outcome from the point of view of Darwinism and materialism towards humanity. It is inevitable that this philosophy, which accepts human beings as soulless animal species, only putting its faith in matter and believing that struggle is an unchanging rule of nature, creates brutal individuals and societies. The main reason of all these unfavorable ongoings is man's denial of his own creator, a society turning his back to God, being drifted by deceitful ideologies like materialism, becomes prone to all forms of relapse. In our day, many scientists, politicians, and men of ideas, whether aware or not of Darwinism's dark face, lend their support to this dogma. If everyone comes to know the scientific invalidity of this theory, which acts as inspiration for cruel dictators, ruthless, inhuman, and self-centered mentalities, it will spell the end of these harmful ideologies. Once the idea of Darwinism, the root of harmful ideologies, is finally overturned, only one truth will remain. That is the truth that God created all human beings and the universe. People who understand this will also realize that the only reality and the only truth lies in the holy book God sent down to us. When a large majority of people come to realize this truth, the pains, troubles, massacres, disasters, injustices, and poverty in the world will be replaced by enlightenment, openness, wealth, plenty, health, and abundance. For this, every false idea harmful to humanity must be intellectually conquered and dismantled by the supreme holy idea, which will bring beauty and splendor to mankind.
Yeah, this is the Cutting Edge on RFM coming through. You are listening to the concept of Charles Darwin's theory about man's evolution and how Europeans use it to inflict a lot of agony on the world. Yes. serious thing. A lot of people say them don't believe in evolution. We don't know how you see out there. Oh, I find out why you don't believe in evolution. And other people say them believe in a creation story. Why you believe in the creation story? You don't really want to hear nobody tell you why the Bible say nothing. True, the Bible says. You know, why you tell me something more than just because it's said in the Bible. You understand?
Blessed love.
I did.
Yes, Muta.
Wait a man.
I listen to the program.
Ah, well, all right, I know the voice.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know you're right up my sleeve tonight.
All right, I don't know, so like I have a flea.
Yes, still, you want no? You see, Darwin like how Mr. Plato, right? A two-man who discovered certain things and did ready to reveal it, and Europe locked them down, and then claims to them say something else other than what them did ready to reveal.
All right.
But now in the new millennium, you see, say,
wait. So what you feel say they must go and reveal when never reveal?
Because we not get the fullness of them. If you look into what them say, them really say certain things where fulfill itself even right now.
Like what?
Because check with DNA, right? When no matter about eugenics and all of them things there is a superior race, and there has always been a superior race, which is I and I. the original people. But even then, DNA now approved. So when Darwin did say every living thing come from the same gene, he never did wrong.
No.
He never did wrong, you know.
No, I don't think him did wrong.
Because we gone to virtual reality now. And virtual reality gone beyond 3 dimensions. So it's like a system that lock down things in a 3-dimensionalism. First I was 1 dimension when them feel so well. If you sail too far out into the sea, you're going to fall off. Right? And we teach them little sense. Now the little sense we teach them each step of the way them take it and them twist it and turn it and say something else. So Darwin did just simply tell them, say, well, yes, the same DNA will control the plant, the animals, are the same DNA control I and I. And if them did allow Darwin to go further, Darwin would have done prove everything born with 9 life, and then a cat alone have 9 life. Because of this, so DNA then now in the 21st century, beginning the 21st century.
You have to explain now when you say 9 life now. What do you mean?
Fala?
You have to explain when you say 9 life, what you really mean. When you say life, cat have 9 life. So that is a metaphorical language.
Make up of 9 faculties. 9 sensory capacity. Put it further, 9 universal sensory capacity. That means them can sense everything within the universe. And them 9 faculty there control leaf, animal, and I too. Aura, aroma, sound, image, balance, chemicals, nutrition, lunar, and solar are the 9 cycles our body go through every month. Now, it's so easier if them did explain the fullness of creation or the fullness of existence to I and I instead of give us the whole Genesis illusion. Because that is what them do.
Yeah, but to be honest, to be fair with Genesis still, it started out by saying the whole world was water and God separate the firmament from the firmament and call one.
Yeah, but that couldn't be true.
Alright, so why couldn't be true? Because it's still a show you say everything come out of water.
But that's not true.
For the next level. Well, that Charles Darwin did that show.
No, Darwin never said that. That's what the European man tried to say. Darwin did that say.
Well, everything don't come from one source.
Yes.
Yeah, and everything come from...
But we can't call it water, because what is water?
Well, when we say what... Alright.
Water just an illusion of the white man, you know.
I understand what you say still. But you know what I say?
Yeah.
In the woman's womb, we know that...
Chemicals there.
Well, a liquid there. Make we say liquid.
Yeah.
Instead of water.
Yeah.
Liquid.
Liquid.
So that life comes out of that, from that liquid, right, into this life. What I say is that the Bible did say that everything was without form and darkness upon the face of the deep. And then
that's never true.
No, me never say true. Me just tell you where it's
the Bible said that. We agree. So that's the Bible.
So all right now. So why you said Darwin never say everything come from one source, which is out of this water, this liquid? Because I'm sure you said fish. The fish after a while evolve and put on wing and fly, and then you have that same species are evolving itself with survival, and through survival things become adaptation, and adaptation bring forth other creatures, and that other creature bring forth other creature. Why I say never say that? Why I say white people I say Darwin I say that? Then Darwin was a white man?
Not fully.
Alright, hold on the bridge.
Like
hold on. There, your cutting edge. Yes, brethren.
Yes, still there.
Yeah, we have to know, you mentioned, we talk about Charles Darwin, I said Shakespeare a while ago. Well, we could have said the same thing about Queen Elizabeth too, but then how far we really want to go with it. You know, we have said Charles Darwin was a white man.
Well, Shakespeare.
Then that may have said Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah.
So what we have
put
said?
it this way. The white man have free mystery. Alright? Now, every other nation on the face of the earth have a history well much older than the white man history.
No, hear the reason we are getting.
Yeah, alright?
We We just get to a reasoning and you say, I said to you that Charles Darwin declared this thing and you say that is white people idea of what Charles Darwin said.
Yeah.
Alright, so what is black people idea of what Charles Darwin said?
Well, most black people idea go off of where white people say about Darwin, you know, because most black people don't read Darwin.
Well, I read Darwin. I read the origin of the species. So you tell me what I did miss now, you know, what Charles Darwin supposed to did say, what white people miss.
All right. Simple.
You no miss, yeah.
When Darwin identified the genealogy, he never identified just the genealogy, you know, he identified the cosmology too. No, the white man don't want to discuss cosmology at all.
But Charles Darwin want to discuss it?
Of course.
Which part you find out that? What is that information? About Charles Darwin?
Simple. Genealogy and cosmology lock as one.
No.
Now, if you notice...
But you can't talk about cosmology and talk about genealogy.
If you notice eugenics in their attempt for laboratory, Hitler and all of them, who misuse Darwin and misquote Darwin, right? The whole of them use it for political negative purposes. You know?
But I know see them that misquote Darwin. Darwin did believe the white people is of a higher nature.
No, he never believed that.
Yeah, man, he believed that, man.
Never believed that.
What do you mean he never believed that?
He never believed that.
When believe?
He never believed that.
Tell me what
white
Darwin
people who don't want Darwin to tell the world the truth.
No, tell me what Charles Darwin believed. Because me know, based upon the theory that Charles Darwin come up with, that white people is a superior being and more evolved from the ape than black people. So tell me where you know different about Charles Darwin.
White people is a more superior race and more evolved from the
ape. That Charles Darwin said.
Hold on, man.
Yeah.
Hold on, man. One word that's enough, you know. One word that's enough. The word superior.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be inferior.
But you know, you me I say, me not talk about what me I say, me I talk about what Charles Darwin say.
No, not Darwin. Me I show you the one word we are called the conflict Muta.
Yeah.
Darwin.
Yeah.
Alright. When you go in anthropology distinctly differentiate between human, man, and mankind, you know. No, that is what we don't do. We don't differentiate between human, man, and mankind.
So did Charles Darwin do that?
Of course.
What Charles Darwin say about man?
What Charles Darwin say
about man?
Mankind.
No, man, not mankind, man.
No, you have to be very careful.
No, me careful. Me know what you mean. Me I say what Charles Darwin say about man. Not mankind, man.
Don't say nothing about man.
He never said nothing about man.
No.
All right. So what him say about mankind?
Good. When he say about mankind, it's the same thing where all anthropological studies show.
Yeah.
Mankind is an evolution from beasts.
From the ape.
Yeah, the beast, not ape alone.
Yeah, but all right.
A 7 anthropological species of them, you know.
All right, so let me ask you a question. What is the difference in your estimation between, I mean, I can understand your mankind, a kind of man, and man. So what is the difference between now Charles Darwin defining mankind as opposed to man? Because this is just intellectual jargon, so now.
All right.
When I get to it. What is the difference between Charles Darwin's definition of mankind and man? Not what you say, you know, what Charles Darwin said.
The difference between Charles, all right, it is simple. once, because Charles Darwin had the ancestral data, him knows that paradise did exist before Holy Genesis.
Where you get that from? Where you get that to Charles? Don't laugh. Where you laugh, Brethren? Where Charles Darwin? Where you read to Charles Darwin get that from?
Well, that is what Darwin means.
No, which part in that which book you read where Charles Darwin said that?
Eh? No, are the exact words where Darwin used, you know.
Yeah, where me use?
The white man as an inferior or a superior being evolved out of apes. That is true.
Yeah.
We know evolve out of apes.
Where we evolved from?
We born.
Born from where? From where we evolved from? Who must evolve?
We born from the same genealogy.
Yeah.
We universally control everything. This is a difference. We hibernative, we warm-blooded. We can deal with the ice. Right? The inferior being now, who call himself the superior being, as the superpower, can deal with the heat. He's cold-blooded.
So where the Homo sapien man come from?
They're not the same man that where we are talking.
Yeah, and so where the Neanderthal man come from?
No, the same man that are seven of them, you know.
So it's like the Homo sapien man move and go evolve into the Neanderthal.
No, we have to get something.
Yeah.
We have to get seven fallen demons and how them seven fallen demons they evolve
Oh,
as the
demon coming
mother
out
of
when I
Babylon.
talk about demon and Babylon and them something. Oh, Babylon.
The seven fallen angels at the altar of the dead.
Brethren, we are talking about something going longer than demon and Babylon, and you tell me about demon and Babylon. We are talking about man
No.
Yeah.
Holy Genesis are just the other day, you know.
No, we are talking about origin of man. You are saying that Charles Darwin said there's a difference between man and mankind.
Yes.
All right. I can understand the semantics in that, you know. I can understand it. Mankind as opposed to man. In other words, mankind is a kind of man.
Yeah.
And man is man.
Yeah.
Now, we have the Homo sapien and we have the Neanderthal man. The Neanderthal man is to Europe, the Homo sapien man is to Africa. All right.
Yeah.
You say, your theory is that the Homo sapien man come from some space place and the Neanderthal man come from ape. Which part you read that with Charles Darwin said that?
No. You miss me right there, sir.
All right. Explain yourself.
Seven of them as ape. Seven of them as animals. So if we want, all right, don't call them ape. Seven of them as animals, including the ape. So anthropology is about the seven animals, them, how them evolve into mankind. How them becomes the children and daughters, the sons and daughters of gods and goddesses. How them become the sons and daughters of man.
Yeah, but how Charles Darwin coming at this? Because Charles Darwin theory don't have nothing to do with God in it.
No, that is it now.
Yeah, so how you are saying now the man them a mix up Charles Darwin now when Charles Darwin done declare himself already? Unless you are trying to put another theory into Charles Darwin mindset.
No. When you eliminate paradise, where it exists before all of that.
Charles Darwin talk about paradise?
No.
Then where you bring paradise from for us? We are talking about Charles Darwin and film theory, if it make any sense. And if it relevant.
Of course, theory makes sense.
Yeah, but when you are talking about paradise though, me say, Charles Darwin is a racist white man from Europe who declared that Europeans' brain is more evolved than people that is not European. You are telling me now, say, there's something
what is evolve, Muta?
Evolve
it means
they're more intelligent and they're more... No, that is what Charles Darwin has said.
No, man.
What Charles Darwin said?
Meaning evolution and degeneration, you know.
No, man, evolution is not degeneration.
Of course.
Evolution must be degeneration.
Of course.
Evolution can be anything.
Growth and evolution, you know.
Growth is what?
Growth or growth?
Evolution is what?
Change.
Evolution is... Alright, so what that mean now? So Charles Darwin never say white people more evolved, more superior, more intelligent, have more sense.
Him just simple say them genetics, them can't remain perfect.
No man, Charles Darwin
them
never say
always
like that. No man.
evolve.
No man, Charles Darwin never said like
perfection.
Charles Darwin never said nothing like that. No man, that's your story, man.
And shaped into iniquity.
No, that's your story.
No one of
that's
my
not Charles Darwin's story. No, me talk about the story about evolution and
Darwin didn't know say the Bible there when he write to you know.
Charles Darwin never talk about no Bible, man.
No,
Charles
but
Darwin contradict the Bible.
And him write based on that.
Brethren, Charles Darwin declare and other people come and know, says that he must say, including Hitler, Stalin, Marx, and all these guys, that white people...
White, and just like how them never want Plato and enough other scientists and people reveal certain things, the same way them never want Darwin to reveal certain things. So all them do is corrupt, what I say.
No, man, Charles Darwin was corrupted from the beginning.
We can argue that in
Charles Darwin was corrupted from the beginning, man.
But the bottom line is this. We see what Darwin say about the gene being identical.
I don't disagree with it, you know. But like I said, Charles Darwin was a racist who declared that for him, race is superior to other race because they are more evolved. Them brains bigger, so they're more evolved. So through them more evolved, they're more intelligent, therefore them have access and necessity. It is their prerogative to get rid of other races.
Muta, you see if that was true, our ancestors wouldn't have to tell them, say, what was hidden from the wise and the prudent shall be revealed to the babes and the suckling.
I think they're Bible doctrine, you know.
Because with all them wiseness right now, Rastafari approved Babylon system as a fraud. With all the wise men who are run the system, Rastafari approved them as a fraud.
Charles Darwin was a white man.
Right?
Then Charles Darwin was a white man, Rasta?
Yeah.
Charles Darwin was a racist white man.
You can't hold that, Muta.
What do you mean we can't hold that? That is not written, Rasta. Him declared that.
Of course it's written, but written by who? Darwin not write that.
Yes.
Darwin not write that, you know?
Yeah, man.
Darwin not write that. Me, Darwin. Is a racist.
No, but Darwin declare
the people
white people.
Darwin.
No. Darwin
the people who banished Darwin.
Nobody never banished Darwin, man.
Oh, you mean?
Hitler never banished Darwin. Hitler did banish Darwin?
No.
Stalin did banish Darwin?
To take the person work and misrepresent.
No, man, them never
misrepresent. That means say you support the person.
No, sir, them never misrepresent it, man. They never misrepresent it. It's just that they have another mindset about it. They never misrepresent it. Because Charles Darwin was in the same mindset.
Not fully.
Darwin
advanced to them.
Yeah, well, him advanced because him come up with that understanding and them never come up with it.
No, not come up with it. Him advanced to them.
Him advanced to them. All right.
Yeah, him have access to the ancestral. Remember, you know, Australia full of whole heap of indigenous people, you know. Darwin have access to the information where the indigenous people have.
What was the information?
Darwin tried to present it.
What was the information? Because
everything related to paradise and all the
man, Darwin never in a note about no paradise, man. Darwin never in a note about no paradise, I know heaven, I know Genesis, I know.
Come on, Muta.
What I mean, come on, what? You don't read the book, Rasta?
Famine.
Brethren, you read the book. You read the original species?
How can famine be used as a political weapon?
Brethren, you read the original species?
Of course. How can famine be used?
You read the original species by Charles Darwin?
Of course.
Where in that book indicate that Charles Darwin was talking about
Muta,
paradise, heaven?
Unless you are privy to the indigenous information.
But I am privy. I have been amongst the Aborigines. I have been amongst the Native Americans. I have been amongst Africans deep in the jungle of Cameroon.
Yeah, but Muta,
where you
translate what them say seriously.
It what?
They speak of many moons and many suns. You believe them, Muta?
Watch a man. That have nothing to do.
Of course,
we are
Muta.
talking about just now, Charles
Of
Darwin.
course,
now.
Muta. It has only to do
So
with
you
it.
believe that Charles Darwin believe in a many moons and many suns and gods in the sky and all these things?
Of course, him know.
Nowhere.
Him know.
Where him
Who
right
in the
that?
sky,
Where
and
him
who
right?
them a do.
Where him right that? Where him right that?
Him know.
Where him right that?
That is why him could have tell you that the white man superior in a way ma do.
And him
So
right.
you if you look into what the word superior means.
Superior means that you have a bigger power. Superior means that you are more. Alright, what superior mean to you, brethren?
Mechanical.
No, what superior mean to you?
Mechanical.
What that mean? I don't understand, brethren. You're going above me, Rasta.
You're
Come on to my level.
automatic. You're a machine.
Superior.
Yeah.
Superior means he's a mechanical.
Yeah.
Oh, alright, sir. Yes, sir. Alright, sir. You're winning.
Remember, you know, the superpower, you know.
Superior means mechanical. So if something is more, if something more superior than the other something, it's called the other something mechanical.
No, because the other something don't know the power where it have. So through the other something don't know the power where it have. The inferior one a parade said superior. Alright.
So what is superior? Mechanical.
Right now.
So white people, so black people superior to white people.
No.
Okay.
We're original to them.
Okay, so white people is a superior
And
race.
in original,
so white people is a superior race.
root, you're undiluted.
So white people is a superior race.
We are the undiluted version and them are the diluted version.
So white people is a superior race to you then?
To me?
In your definition of superior.
In my definition.
Yeah, white people is a superior race. Because that is where Charles Darwin had decided, and that is where Hitler did that say.
They are the race that is superimposed on us.
No,
so
not
yes,
superimposed and superior are two different words, man.
Eh?
Don't be a stupid fool, man.
No, I'm
superior
not
and
being I'm not being
yes, superior and superimposed is two different words.
Whether these two different words, them do the same thing.
Brethren.
Them make one stay behind and them go in front.
Brethren.
So when you superimpose something,
you don't mean
you put one thing in front side,
brethren,
the one behind.
Superimpose don't have nothing to do with superior.
Then how comes inferior there?
My brethren,
superiority imposed upon inferiority, you know.
I never said no, but it don't have nothing to do with superimpose.
No, man.
You're defining, you are defining superior as superimpose. The two of them is not the same thing.
The word itself superior, tell you point blank.
So you superimpose.
Yeah, that you superimpose and you push something at the back.
Yeah. And white people is superior.
Well, that is exactly it. From them, that is why them keep on call themselves superpower, super.
All right, so who is inferior now? So who is inferior? Because the opposite of superior must be inferior, no?
Yes.
So if white people is superior, that means that you accept inferior then?
No. I don't deal with none of them. That's why I say.
So who is inferior?
Original.
Who is inferior? Who is inferior?
That's why I say I don't deal with inferior nor superior. I deal with original.
No, but me not say you can deal with it. You define it to me, you know. You teach me something now. You talk about definition of word. You say superior mean superimpose. Inferior mean what?
Inferior?
Yeah. Is inferior the opposite? Is inferior the opposite of superior?
Is inferior
the opposite of superior? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So what is the meaning of inferior?
Inferior?
Yes.
Means you are overpowered.
All right. So if white people is superior, who is inferior?
Who is overpowered?
Tell me. You tell me.
Certainly not the original man.
No, you tell me. I don't mean who is not. Tell me who it is.
The modern man.
If white people is superior, tell me who is inferior.
The modern man.
Who is modern man?
Illusion.
White people.
No, the modern man, regardless what color him is. In him illusion, him inferior.
So white people is superior and all modern man is inferior.
Where you define as all modern man?
No, you don't know about modern man.
Then you have the original man there to one of the modern man.
Vietnam man. They're not modern man. Me at all listen to you know. You say
yeah,
white
but me no modern man.
Me never talk about you,
man.
brethren. You tell me say white people superior. I mean ask you who is inferior. And you tell me the modern man.
Yeah, them superior.
No matter what race
man.
them belong to.
Right?
No matter what race them belong to.
No matter what race them belong
Alright,
to.
so what you have said to me now is that white people is superior and modern man, no matter which race them belong to, is inferior.
Is the superior and the inferior to the original man.
Alright, brethren, we have to move, yeah?
Bless.
Isaac, Cutting Edge, RFM.
Listen to the Cutting Edge with Muta on RFM.
You're tuned to the Cutting Edge on RFM. Unraveling the little thing in our own little way. You know, this is a where we say a grassroots program, you understand? And we try to bring across some things where to make people just go out there and examine things for themselves, you understand? And the brethren come up with some reason a while ago, you understand? Where Charles Darwin said, as I said before, even before I start to play the cassette, I said to you that the brethren where I do the narration on the tape, it talk about how Stalin and Marx and Hitler and Mussolini tried to impose this doctrine about superior race upon the world, and then them try to eliminate other people. I had declared to that brethren there, you know, and I know him still, but I had declared to him that Islam and Christianity did similar things during them reign on earth, yeah, over the 2,000 years and how much years, 1,500 years Islam there, that them do the same thing to impose upon the religion upon people. It's like how Stalin and Hitler and Mussolini, fascist Mussolini, tried to impose fascism, and Hitler tried to impose fascism, and Stalin and all these guys tried to impose all of these doctrines and murder and maim and kill people. We say these religions are the same thing, so I don't see no difference outright here. I don't see no difference in the extremities of these ideas when it comes on to rule and control. Whenever religion is about control and politics is about control, and the two of them come from the same thing. As a matter of fact, if you look on all of these religious and political ideas, they must come from one source. You know? But when we look on Charles Darwin understanding still, when he say ape, man, and him say white people, and white people believe this, that the evolutionary process is at their advantage because they are the more advanced on the scale. We are reasonable, brethren, and turn it round still, but I don't want to turn around nothing right. So we understand. I can't use up the people their brains, you know. A man feels if I bring a brains is a more intelligent. Well, that's about the elephant them. We don't know. Maybe the elephant them are the most intelligent creatures them on earth, you know. But it's a thing where white people use over the years to subjugate other nations. Yeah, this idea that, you know, white people, they have to rule other people. And when you look on the evolutionary process as we talk about the evolution, the Neanderthal man is into Europe. If you look on his skin, it's still eerie. As a matter of fact, I can show you and I can prove to you that the blacker you is the less eerie you is. We don't know what you think about that. Yes. The blacker, the blacker your genes is the less ear upon your skin. If you don't believe me, looking at Africa, looking at the Congo, looking at the Cameroons, where you hardly find any mix-up going, and you will see that the people them in these places don't have beard. You understand? It's a serious thing. Yes. Music out of Africa, different style, different mix coming through. Yeah, man, you think so we ramp? You know, ramp with the African music, you know. The time is 10 minutes past the hour, 2 o'clock. I hope you was here when I was playing it here. Well, if our people never hear it, we'll not play it again, you know. I want to believe the man come from monkey. You believe the man come from monkey, or you believe that there is someone out there that create man as a separate entity from other things? Because as the brethren rightly say, they must show you right now the DNA connection between man and his surroundings. That's what you call anthropology, the study of man in surroundings. And right now they must use the DNA to show you genetic link up. So if man was a separate entity, how come him have the same genetic link up? We have to answer these questions, you know. We have to even question the theory of creation also. Everybody have a question, you know. Everybody have a question to answer. It's a serious thing. Everybody have a question to answer.
is London, author of Oxford. You are listening to Muta on the cutting edge here on Ivy FM.
Yes. Hello. Down here.
Muta.
Yeah, man, we'll talk to you now.
Yeah. Answer still. Before we question anything. Nothing. Yeah. Answer still enough. Before we question anything about no creation and not can we're created.
Yeah, you're good enough. You have to come up. Brethren?
Yeah.
Where's that while ago?
Question anything about mankind and we should come on here. First, creation itself. That was the first thing then on earth. The what?
When I hear you properly. You're going in and come out, you know. Where are you? Got cellular?
Yeah. Yeah, here now.
Yeah, but you're going and come in.
Here now.
I hear you now, but you know, I hear you fully.
Yeah, I hear me fully now.
Alright, yeah, go on now.
So man, so before we question anything about creation, if we question if them say water was the first on the earth, the water come from, the water itself comes from them.
Yeah.
You see what I say?
Yeah, where you think it comes from?
Boy, that me have to add to it. I don't know, but me just say where that come from.
Well, me don't know where it comes from either.
That me have to add to it.
The Bible says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. But not the light that when we talk about, because it's ironical that God make the plants then before he make the sun. And we know that nothing can live without the sun. And the Bible tells us that God make the plant then before he make the sun. When I talk to a brethren, this big theologian, him say, it's true it's one day, it never really need the sun. So God just make the plant never make.
Yeah, man, say Muta, never get cut off. So you man, I love that me have to add to.
Yeah. Well, maybe somebody can answer it out there. Give thanks. Yeah, brethren?
Yeah, man.
All right.
Good life, you want. Just live in the sun, you don't want to go.
Heron once said, the revolution will not be televised. Well, Gil Scott may have a point. The revolution may not be televised, but the revolution will be a major motion picture. The revolution will not be televised, but the revolution will be on the big screen. The revolution will be a $50 million production. The revolution will be written by John Grisham and directed by Oliver Stone.
Yes, Cutting Edge. Yes?
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, it's Muta.
Yeah, man, I'm Muta.
Me call the brethren a racist.
Oh.
Charles Darwin.
Yeah.
A white man is a racist if him like that white man superior to other races.
No.
And what would I make a white man a racist?
Alright, you see, all the racism coming about now, when them use that,
yeah,
right, to justify the treatment of people.
Mm-hmm.
You see, when you use those theories to justify how you treat other people, that is where the racism come in, because you're not going to treat your own so. Because of the thinking. So when the thinking now justify you treating other people, this is where the racism come in.
But the belief in itself.
No, the belief in itself say you're superior to a person who wouldn't make you a racist.
That wouldn't make you a racist?
No.
Okay.
No. The belief, if you believe say you're stronger than the next man, it don't mean say, you know, it just means say you feel so. So, you know, but when you start to use now, that belief now, for carry down, or for oppress, or for, you know, for just keep somebody in a subjugation, that is where the racism come in, because of him color. Because of a man color now, you wield your power over him and oppress him and keep him down. That is where the racism come in.
But if people believe that they're race, or believe that...
It's not a race, no, it's not that's not racism.
Okay.
If I believe say I'm more powerful than white people, that don't make me a racist.
My race is superior?
No, that don't make me a racist.
Okay.
What make you a racist now is when you use power against other people because of them race.
Well, I suppose black people succeed in creating a black super state in Africa and implement, institutionalize racial policies that prohibit whites from
That's not racism.
Okay.
That's not racism. Because you have... Alright, you see in China, you never see a Chinaman have another set of people in the parliament.
Yes, good.
Right? That means, you know, in Europe, if you look at Germany, in the political, you don't call a German racist because no black people not in a parliament.
No.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call no black man. If him decide to build up Africa and exempt other races, I don't see my racist. What is racism is when him using power now to subjugate other people because him have the power. If I have my house, right, and I decide to look at, I don't want you coming at my house, you know. It no mean say I hate you.
Yes, no, we understand that.
Yeah, so if an African state build up of a racial policies, it don't make you a racist.
So that means the white people policies then. If white man come up with a policy that prohibit other races from controlling
for them things.
Yeah.
That don't make them a racist.
If Hitler come up with the Nuremberg laws.
Yeah.
That seeks to curtail Jewish hegemony in Germany.
And black people.
But black people never have no hegemony in Germany anyway.
Yeah.
But the Jewish economic hegemony, cultural hegemony, you know, and the control.
No, but it was even more than that, you know. Hitler thing was even more than that, you know.
Okay, but I just asking, before you go to more than that, I was asking if that in itself would make him a racist.
No.
That would make him a German nationalist?
Nationalist, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but the racism coming now is when now you're going to create a super race by exterminating the other races. By using your power to exterminate other races because you believe that your race is a superior race. That is racism.
We mentioned that. I didn't hear all the cassettes still. I didn't hear all of it, but I hear him mention eugenics movement in Germany.
Yeah.
And him forget to mention that it was influenced by America and the American eugenics movement.
Yeah, well,
and he said that it was a secret order, and this thing was carried out in secret. That's not so. That's a lie. It was everybody knew, and it was closed down because the church and the Germans were against it. So eventually Hitler had to close it down.
Yeah, well,
so I think the man kind of.
You see where the brethren attack? Look at, you see the brethren attack? He's a brethren.
They know him.
Yeah, me listen to him, I mean, I say, that's why I'm bring up the reason and say, boy, right now, before I start paying the tape, I say, enough things him say that would I like a conversation about, because when we look on Islam and Christianity, it's the same thing them perpetuate against people.
Is that Christian?
No, it's a Muslim.
Oh, it's a Muslim.
Yeah,
you know him personally?
Yeah, it's a black brethren, it's a set of brethren where them create some tape. Can we play some of that tape with them too, about the Illuminati and them something there, right? But what I say is that when him talk about communism, Stalin and all these guys creating a thinking revolution where you have to kill people to maintain that power. When I say that these religions, even film religion, do the same thing to maintain power. Them stipulate a certain doctrine over the people them. That if the people them don't go with that doctrine, them will kill them said way. You know, so I mean, panel level them not see no difference really.
But them, I mean, them tape that and the conspiracy theorists tape. I mean, I hear you play enough of them. I'm not really listen to them when you play them. Because to me, it's a waste of time. I prefer when you play the Dr. Ben and the Van Sertim. I mean, when you start to play the Illuminati and the Christian and the spookies kind of tape them.
Yeah, when you see them tape, it stimulate a man mind still, because if you don't play them.
Yeah, it stimulate the first caller mind, a whole heap.
Yeah.
It's more stimulated.
God, it get massage in the stimulation. Well, if they don't pop, if they don't have a pre-thought already before you hear the tape, if that like the tape, it's like I'm glad to hear that now to come back, see. But I guess it's our people. Alright, you see, even when the brethren have said it's racism are going and how them use it, that's supposed to help a man consciousness still, you know what I mean? You
mean them use materialism and
them use the doctrine. This
Marx and Engels.
Yeah, the doctrine for maintain white supremacy. You know, them use a doctrine there against the people them. And it's that the brethren. Basically, even though a whole heap of the information we might get, we may not agree with it.
Yeah.
Basically, what I say is that white supremacy have its roots in a whole heap of the doctrine of Stalin, Hitler, Marx, and all these guys who bring up these political ideas based upon the superiority of white people. You know?
But I can't. Well, that everybody have that kind of mainstream idea of white supremacy. So white supremacy embedded in fascism. And not so much liberal democracy, in the West.
All of them come from the same root. All of them have the same root, even before America. Because most white people from America is Germans. And them ancestry in Germany. So it's not like America is just a young place. It's like 100 years old. We are talking about something before America and the we call the United States of America. This doctrine was before the United States of America. You understand? It's just that now the United States of America is the mainstream, what we call the mainstream propaganda of this liberal democracy, and even within itself too, communist ideas.
What about Zionism?
Then Zionism not
Zionist ideology,
they're not the same thing.
Colonized American Congress.
No, then
American foreign policy.
But Zionism are the same liberal democracy.
To a certain extent.
No, at a certain extent me I talk about. At a certain extent me I talk about. Zionism is liberal democracy where them put in a free mind to say, boy, right now, they are accepting most of the things them. But yet still it is in the interest of the few. It's really the few that control and manipulate the whole thing. You know?
Well, if he was as a Muslim, I'm surprised he never stressed the fact that the Jewish bankers in New York sponsor the Bolsheviks.
No, well, I will never talk about that. You see, there's another tape that we play when talk about that.
Okay, him.
Yeah, this brethren. It's a whole heap of tape them have, you know. And them deal with different topics. Them talk about money.
American Muslim.
No, man. Him come from England. It's England them there. Where them do, them send out some tapes. Them talk about like money, the origin of money, and how money play its part in the whole control of people. And then them have ones about the different structure, the government so structure around the same Illuminati idea. Them have this one that talk about, you know, them have those different subjects. Them just talk about. This brother is the narrator for most of them. You know, so in our next tape over the play, him mention where you just talk about.
Yeah, but religion, fees the religion carry them white still.
Of course, definitely.
They carry them too white. The black Muslims, them make the religion cloud their mind towards certain reality.
I don't think him is a black Muslim still.
He's not black?
No. Yeah, he's a black brethren, but I don't think he's an Orthodox Muslim. Where them call?
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, when I say black Muslim, I don't necessarily mean Farrakhan, man, you know.
Oh, well, when time we say black Muslim, a Nation of Islam, you mention.
No, not Nation of Islam. Black Muslim in general.
Black people who say them are Muslim.
Yeah, have that kind of thing. Even Malcolm X, he kind of get caught up in that trap.
Yeah.
You know?
All right, brethren.
All right.
Yeah, give time. Yes, continue. Coming show, IRFM.
When I was 12 years old, my mama asked me, Kwame, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Playing a poem before the brethren call. I think we want to continue playing the poem there, you know, yes. This is the knowledge.
My man Gil Scott Heron once said, the revolution will not be televised. Well, Gil Scott may have a point. The revolution may not be televised, but the revolution will be a major motion picture. The revolution will not be televised, but the revolution will be on the big screen. The revolution will be a $50 million production. The revolution will be written by John Grisham and directed by Oliver Stone. The revolution will star Kevin Costner and Julia Roberts, and they will teach people of color how to revolt, and how to fight, and how to hide, and how to kill, and how to scream. The revolution will be on the big screen, brother. The revolution will have one Latino extra playing a thief, one Asian extra playing a servant, and one Native American extra running down Florence and Normandy yelling Geronimo. The revolution will have one black supporting actor, Denzel Washington, who will be killed by Kevin Costner in the first 3 minutes for looking at Julia Roberts for more than 1 minute, while Kevin Costner will have a picture of Whitney Houston burning in his wallet. The revolution will be on the big screen, sister. The revolution will be coming soon to a theater near you. And we'll get 2 thumbs up from Cisco and Ebert. And we'll make more money than Jurassic Park or E.T. The revolution will cost $7.50 to see or $5.50 if you got a student ID. The revolution will go good with popcorn, bonbons, and licorice. The revolution will be on the big screen. The revolution will have a multi-platinum soundtrack with revolutionary songs sung by Guns N' Roses, Metallica, and Madonna. The revolution will be advertised on billboards, buses, t-shirts, and at Taco Bell and Mickey D's. The revolution will be on the big screen, y'all. The revolution will be distributed internationally. The revolution will be seen in Cuba, Rwanda, and Haiti. The revolution will change the way the world thinks about revolution and the way the world thinks about change. The revolution will be on the big screen. The revolution will have a sequel. The revolution will have a part 3. The revolution will be too large for TV, too large for the little screen. The revolution will be larger than life and larger than large and larger than larger than large. The revolution will not be televised, not be televised, not be televised. What? The revolution will be on the big screen.
The man called D-Knowledge coming through on the cutting edge. We want to play. We're going this one. Go on with them foolishness there now. We want to play a poem here. I want you to listen to this poem very, very carefully.
The poems are very important, are critical, because soul and fire wind songs must not be neutral. Cannot be void of birth and dying, wasted life in the path of vicious horse masquerading as progress in spheres of influence. I'm talking about killing memory. What of mothers? Without milk or willing love of fathers whose eyes and vision have been separated from feeling of earth and growth, of children whose thoughts dwell on rest and food and human kindness. Tomorrow's future reigns in atrocious mediocrity and suffering death. In America, the excitement is over a rock singer's glove and burning hair. As serious combat rages over prayers in school and the best diet plan, and women learn how to lift weights to the rhythms of what's love got to do with it. That's the children. Always the children caught in the absent spaces of adult juvenility. All breakdancing and singing to everything's everything, while noise occupies the mind as garbage feeds the brain. In El Salvador, mothers search for their sons and teach their daughters the way of the knife. In South Africa, mothers bury hearts without bodies while pursuing the seekers of forgotten foreparents. In Afghanistan, mothers claim bones and teeth from mass graves and curse the silent world. In Lebanon, the sons and daughters receive horror hourly, sacrificing childhood for the promise of land. In Ethiopia, mothers separate wheat from the desert's dust while the bones of their children cut through dry skin. Tomorrow's future may not belong to the people, may not belong to dance or music, where getting physical is not an exercise but simply translated to people, working people, fighting people, enduring insults and smiles, enduring crippling histories and back pocket politics wrapped in disease blankets bearing AIDS markings and white justice for victims who do not question gifts from strangers, do not question love of enemy. Who owns the earth? Most certainly not the people, not the hands that work the waterways, nor the backs bending in the sun, nor the bone fingers soldering transistors, not the legs walking the massive fields, nor the knees glued to the pews of storefront or granite churches, nor the eyes blinded by computer terminals, not the bloated bellies on toothpick legs, all victims of decisions made at the Washington Monument and Lenin's tomb by AIDS actors viewing Red Dawn and Retainer Rambo Part 9. Tomorrow may not belong to the women and men laboring, hustling, determined to avoid contributing to the wealth of grave diggers from foreign soil and soul, determined to stop the erosion of indigenous music, of building values of traditions. Memory is only precious if you have it. Memory is only functional if it works for you. People of colors and voices are locked in multi-basement state buildings, filling memories more efficient than vultures tearing flesh from decaying bodies. The order is that people are to believe and believe, questioning or contemplating the direction of the weather is unpatriotic. It is not that we distrust poets and politicians. We fear the disintegration of thought. We fear the cheapening of language. We fear the history of victims of the loss of vision. We fear writers whose answer to maggots drinking from the open wounds of babies is a cry of genocide while demanding 10 cents per word and university chairs. We fear politicians that sell coffins at a discount and consider ideas blasphemy. As young people roll over, bleed from the teeth while aligning themselves with whoever brings the food, whoever brings the love. Who speaks the language of bright memory? Who speaks the language of necessary memory? The face of poetry must be fire, erupting volcanoes, hot silk forged new histories, poetry delivering light greater than barricades of silence, poetry dancing, preparing seers, warriors, healers, and parents beyond the age of babies, poetry delivering melodies that cure dumbness and stupidity, yes, poets uttering to the intellect and spirit, screaming to the genes and environments, revitalizing the primacy of the word and world. Poets must speak the language of the rain, decipher the message of the sun, play the rhythms of the earth, demand the cleaning of the atmosphere, carry the will and weight of the world, feel the heart and questions of the people, and the conditions and conditions and condition and condition. And be ready to move, to come at midnight or noon, to run against a moneyed hurricane in this, the hour of forgotten sales, forgiven promises, and the frightening whispers of rulers in heat.
Where am I at? Why is it so bright in here? What the? Pop, what you doing here? They told me, Nana told me you was gone to see the Son of God. She said Jesus kicked you in heaven. Oh, no, surely.